Imagine an animal becoming so rare that seeing one in the wild feels impossible. Then discovering people are still allowed to hunt it. These are 8 endangered species fighting for survival while humans continue targeting them.
Number 8. Great White Shark. Steven Spielberg's Jaws terrified audiences everywhere by making them question whether it is safe to go back in the water after introducing the monstrous 25-foot killer shark. The great white shark, easily the most well-known of the shark family, has long been regarded as the apex predator in the waves. With its 4,000 pounds per square inch pressure bite, it's the largest macro predatory hunter. While great whites are considered vulnerable, it is more of a safety metric in their case. This is because scientists can't fully approximate the great white population across the globe. However, sightings of great whites have become increasingly less frequent, leading to the belief that the species is vulnerable, which is a step above being declared endangered. For this reason, many nations have passed laws forbidding the hunting of great white sharks. The only acceptable scenario for killing one, in most cases, is a matter of self-defense. However, because not all nations have made shark hunting illegal, and there is no real way to police the open ocean, shark hunting continues. The fin of the great white is a particularly sought-after delicacy, used in soups by multiple nations. Commercial fishermen also hunt sharks, though they capture many other fish along with them, making it easier to conceal their hunts. There were 5 fatal shark attacks in Australia in 2012, which prompted the Australian government to legalize shark hunting. The licensing in particular denotes that shark hunting should be performed solely in defense of swimmers in open water. The only time that sharks are a danger to people is if the people are out in the water and not in their boats. To these terms, shark hunting is then only legal as a defense of humans in peril. Number 7. Cheetah. Most of us are aware that cheetahs are the fastest land animal in existence. Their impressive speed bursts allow them to cover up to 500 yards, sprinting at anywhere between 70 and 75 miles per hour. However, what many do not realize is that by the time the cheetah is done running, like when it's chasing down a kill, it needs rest before it can even eat its prey. Up to 10 minutes just to catch its breath. Their amazing speed comes at a cost. The cost is that while cheetahs do the hard work of chasing down their prey and taking it down, while they catch their breath, other animals, namely lions, hyenas, or wild prairie dogs, often show up at the scent of the fresh kill and attempt to take it for themselves. The cheetah, being in no shape for combat, sometimes has to forfeit the fruits of their labor. Cheetahs aren't a threat to humans unless provoked. In fact, they're shy and often go out of their way to avoid people, seeing us as a threat or their own predator. But they have a harder time avoiding other, bigger animals. This is especially true when bigger cats like lions show up to take over kills or go after cheetah cubs. A cheetah parent will fight for their young, but as they're not the biggest killer around, they don't always succeed in this noble venture. Because they often fall in battles with other beasts, the population hasn't thrived as much as some of the other African animals. On top of the vulnerability against bigger beasts, there is also poaching that is driving their already small population down. Cheetah pelts, especially the pattern of a king cheetah, are worth serious money and are therefore highly prized. With all of these factors in play, the number of cheetahs remaining in the world is roughly around 12,400. Unlike human hunters going after cheetahs, there have been no documented cases of cheetahs attacking people. While the shy animal never picks a fight, if engaged in one, the 160-pound big cat would certainly dominate a human foolish enough to battle it. Let's remember that many hunters are out for animals like the cheetah for the thrill, but the more danger involved, the higher the license fees tend to be. While the big 5 cats collect far more of a cost, cheetahs, being a shyer hunter, can be hunted legally for a license of about $1,750. For those hunters who want to hunt big cats but can't afford the others, cheetah becomes a prime choice, thus driving the cheetah population numbers down even more. Number 6, hippopotamus. Hippos are the most underestimated killers in all of Africa. This is in large part to their look, which many perceive to be that of an aloof giant pig. But make no mistake, the hippo is an extremely ill-tempered, aggressive, and shockingly fast animal. Their level of aggression is comparable to that of the notoriously temperamental honey badger and the reactive Cape buffalo. They are deceptively fast, being able to cover 50-yard treks at about 20 miles per hour. That is far faster than a human can do. On top of everything, they have 6-inch thick skin, which makes it impenetrable by most conventional methods. Aside from their bruteness and their girth, the hippo's teeth are perhaps the most worrisome thing to any human that's around them. Their canine fangs measure up to 20 inches, and they can open their unhinged jaw up to 170 degrees, whether they are yawning or attacking. Not that humans have ever had enough of a chance to be around hippos. Even seasoned big game hunters tend to pass on hippos due to the immense danger of being in their vicinity. While hippos are not meat eaters, they have no issue launching a sudden attack on anyone or anything, even without provocation. This includes combating huge crocodiles in the Nile when both are submerged in water at the time of a confrontation. Even though they present a very real threat, hippos are still hunted excessively by big game hunters, poaching them for trophies, which is namely their ivory tusks, which hold a high market value, though trading ivory internationally is formally banned. Many countries, however, do permit licenses at around a $2,500 price point. That's before guide and travel fees. It's now estimated that about 125,000 to 150,000 hippo still roam in the wild. In an interesting story, the famous drug dealer Pablo Escobar owned 4 hippos. When he was arrested and the authorities raided his estate, they had no chance of getting the hippos captured and restrained. The process proved so burdensome that they allowed the hippos to roam free. These hippos reproduced and expanded their herd to a whopping 16. Most of them are still living in or near the Magdalena River, though one has been shot in self-defense. Number 5, polar bear. While the sharks dominate as the most prolific hunters of the sea, no other animal can rival the hunting prowess of the greatest terrestrial hunter on the planet, the polar bear. The closest in this regard is the Siberian tiger, which is less than half of the polar bear's massive size, stretching anywhere from 6 to 8 feet long and weighing in the range of 750 to 1,500 pounds, with a 12-inch average for its paw width. At its shoulder, the polar bear reaches about 5 feet off the ground, with the largest one ever recorded weighing a monstrous 2,210 pounds, with an 11-foot height when standing on its hind legs. The latter fact was determined once this bear was hunted and killed in Kotzebue Sound, Alaska. While most wild animals have a relative tolerance of humans and will typically watch them in order to observe if they're a threat before attacking, the polar bear is known for being the one hunter that will actively scope out and hunt human beings, considering them a food source rather than a fellow hunter. They are expert hunters who, irrespective of their giant size, are deceptively stealthy, making very little noise when walking on snow and sneaking up on their prey from behind. They've been known to frequent areas with high human traffic, scan for prey, and charge without being provoked from as far as 100 yards away. 5 nations who lay claim to the Arctic region, U.S., Canada, Russia, Denmark, and Norway, have been hotly contesting the area. But there is one common ground that they've found, and that is the importance of the preservation of the polar bear. In fact, it was pretty much the only point of agreement between the Soviet Union and the U.S. during the Cold War era. With merely 20,000 to 25,000 polar bears estimated to still be living in the wild, their hunting is permitted legally for sustenance by the indigenous natives of the region who've practiced polar bear hunting for centuries. Unlike other nations, Norway has entirely outlawed polar bear hunting for any reason. The U.S. takes relatively drastic measures to prevent it by imposing severe restrictions on the hunters and requiring a $35,000 license to do so. However, those who travel to polar bear populated territories of the Arctic are mandated to be armed for the purposes of self-defense against Earth's only predator who will actively hunt humans. Number 4. Grizzly bear. The grizzly bear, a brown bear subspecies, is one of the most lured beasts of the wild in North America and one of the continent's most dangerous hunters. Specifically, the Kodiak, a type of grizzly, is formally regarded as being endangered. The availability of food is a critical factor in the bear's ability to survive into adulthood, as it is an influence on their size. Back in 2005, only 3,526 remained in the wild. Some Kodiaks who don't have sufficient access to nourishment end up being smaller in size, so while the species is typically tied for fifth in size with other world beasts, other grizzlies may now be comparable in size. Most grizzly bears are about 3.5 feet tall, roughly 6.5 feet long, and while most average between 400 and 800 pounds, they've been known to reach 1,500 pounds. Even with that massive girth, the grizzly can charge at a stunning 41 miles per hour for as far as 50 yards. Grizzlies live in the U.S. but are located primarily in the Alaskan Peninsula, Yellowstone Park, and the northwestern regions of Montana. Grizzlies live in the U.S. but are located primarily in the Alaskan Peninsula, Yellowstone Park, and the northwestern regions of Montana. However, most hunters try to target smaller-sized grizzlies, so they head up to Canada, where populations for somewhat smaller bears live. With an estimated 71,000 members of the subspecies left in the world, the numbers are falling quickly. The drop is almost entirely due to hunting, which is why grizzly bears qualify as endangered. There have certainly been cases of a grizzly on human attack, but while grizzlies are quite a bit more aggressive than black bears, these attacks stem largely due to surprising a mother watching over her cubs. Those unfortunate enough to have been attacked, yet fortunate enough to make it out alive, suffered horrific injuries, such as having their skulls squeezed so hard that their eyes popped out of their sockets. Grizzly hunting licenses have increased about a decade ago, in 2011, with the current price to kill one of these rare creatures being $1,155 in the U.S. and Canada. Number 3, African lion. Over the last 2 decades, the African lion population has dropped by 30 to 50%, with their current estimated numbers being roughly 15,000 in the world. The largest reason for their downfall is industrial encroachment. As people move in and bring in machinery, all of the typical prey that supplies a lion's food source moves out of the area. Not having preyed in the region causes lions to move as well. When it comes to hunting prowess, almost no animal can hold a candle to African lions. However, they're not prone to attack humans unless suffering from septic wounds or major dental problems. They have incredibly strong paws, one swipe of which can sever a smaller animal or a human in half. They are also incredibly fast, running in 150-yard bursts at 45 miles per hour. Imagine being pursued by a 600-pound male lion like that for a moment. Known as the king of beasts, lions stand out with their majestic appearance, an attribute that draws the desire of hunters to score some trophies off of killing them. While the license to kill a lion costs $5,000, a professionally guided tour can run an additional $18,000 all the way up to $45,000. Some animals, like the next entry on this list, are only permitted to be hunted when they're older, though with lions the rules are different. In South Africa, Kenya, and Tanzania, as well as some other African countries, lions can be hunted regardless of age or gender as long as they're adults. Hunters also do not go out into the wild to hunt lions typically. More commonly, these lions live in private 20,000-plus acre conservation land. Number 2, African bush elephant. Certain species are very challenging to hunt. In North America, for instance, white-tailed deer are incredibly hard to pin down. They have an amazing sense of smell and hearing, so they can hear a human approaching from quite a distance. Similarly, wild turkeys make it difficult to hunt them down because they bail as soon as a human is in the vicinity. African bush elephants, however, unlike other species that bolt from prospective threats, don't feel the need to run or escape. After all, they are aware that they're bigger than any other creature around them, so they naturally have little to fear. Their lack of getting away makes them easier to kill than most others. Due to their size, elephants have no natural predators. Humans use elephant guns to take them down, and there is nothing natural about that. When hunting parties arrive in jeeps, elephants do not run, and if they did try to hide, they'd have a hard time doing so successfully. If they see something unfamiliar, they tend to watch, or, if made nervous, just move away. This leaves them as an open target for a skilled hunter looking to take them down with a precise headshot. The elephant's popularity has collapsed massively over the last century. In 1900, 10 million elephants were roaming the African plains. These days, there are only between 450,000 and 700,000. While this is a sizable number compared to some other endangered or vulnerable creatures, the rate of population collapse makes them very much endangered. Most of the millions of elephants who perished did so before many African countries began more strict policing of the hunters in the middle of the 1900s. Most of the current elephant hunts now occur by poachers who sneak in to do so illegally. While ivory is not permitted to be sold, many Asian nations still have an insatiable taste, not only for ivory products sold to them for around $5,000 in the form of tusks, they also love owning baskets made from elephant feet. There is legal elephant hunting in a few African nations, but the regulations are extremely expensive and impose rules in that hunters can only take down old bulls or cows and charge $50,000 per elephant. It is non-negotiable that the elephant must either be gravely ill, very old, or a threat to humans due to going rogue, with the latter typically taken down by game wardens who work for the wildlife preserves. Those elephants who can no longer foster offspring or are simply weighing down their herd are the one hunters are permitted to go after. Elephants set for targets cannot simply be shot anywhere. They need to be lured from their herds. This is because if a hunter misses, the elephant will likely charge them to scare them away. Shooting an elephant next to a herd could incite a deadly stampede. Even when the elephant is on its own, the guide backs up the jeep and the hunter must fire their weapon from the back in order to more easily make a getaway in case of a charge. Animal rights groups vehemently oppose even such limitations. Proponents of them, however, argue that not only are they sparing the elephant from starvation, but they're also ending its life quickly, rather than when it's old and feeble, falling vulnerable to being taken down by a pride of African lions. Plus, they argue that the exuberant fees they pay are funding the preserves where the elephants live. Of course, it's a headshot that kills an elephant, and some hunters argue that they would rather hunt with a 700 Nitro Express, a bow and arrow combination that is far more likely to injure an elephant than kill it. Number 1. Black Rhinoceros. The black rhino is the most critically endangered species on the planet. Poachers still go after them for their horns, using those to produce dagger hilt, as well as grinding the bones up to be used in pseudo-medications. Between Tanzania, Kenya, South Africa, and parts north of Angola, a decade ago there were only 2,500 rhinos left in Africa, with that number almost certainly being far fewer now. In 1996, a hunter named John Hume purchased the right to 3 rhinos for a whopping $200,000, being one of the first to make such a payment. He hunted one himself and sold the rights to others for $150,000 each to anonymous hunters who would not produce their names due to receiving death threats. This happened in South Africa, where rather than outlawing black rhino hunting, the country charges gigantic fees for the privilege. One of the hunters was brought by a guide after Hume hunted, and the two followed the rhino bull for 2 days, finally putting the animal down after 2 headshots. Similar to elephants, rhinos don't know to run from rifles, and they don't find people to be intimidating. Unlike the elephants, they are short-tempered, almost as much as the Cape buffalo or the hippo, and they will charge humans without provocation, attempting to gore the threat. Due to their bad eyesight, their targets are often missed or are just termite mounds. If a hunter can avoid being gored by the charging animal and can take it down, they are permitted to keep any part of the rhino, but they cannot sell or trade it, as this type of trade is strictly prohibited around the world.